Good morning. I'm Bharti, and I'm really excited to be on LinkedIn Live with Krish, our director and head of consulting at Marg. He's also Procise Advanced Instructor. So today's conversation is a feed forward from Synapse 2025, an event hosted by Marg on the topic of AI and change management. This event focused on bringing about awareness on the importance of adoption in AI transformation. So, building on the energy of Synapse, today's conversation is all about the questions that were unanswered during the event. So, let's take this as an opportunity to explore, reflect, and learn together. So, Krish, are you all set? Yes. So the first question today is, so how is this change management different for AI-led transformation as compared to other transformation? I mean, is there anything special that we need to do for these AI transformations?
Uh, Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Bharti. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the question. Well, it's a yes and no answer. Uh, First, when you're talking about AI-led transformation, you're talking about the current round of AI-led transformations, as compared to the fact that we've been living with AI in our technologies for probably about a decade and a half or 2 decades at least. Broader context, and I'll probably pick up this theme as maybe I can insert it into other questions. But let's just keep in mind that AI has been around for quite some time. AI in technology in the workplace has been around for quite some time. So that's one broad comment. For the current round of transformations, if I go back to the research that Precise just finished, right, which is on AI-led transformation and AI-led adoption, uh, what is same? What is similar? Sponsors are still absolutely crucial. Change management is still absolutely crucial. Resourcing, change management, resourcing, project management, bringing them together is important. Bringing middle managers along the story is important. Communication is vital. Employees are critical in making sure they are feeling included and it's their change and not the organization's change alone. So all these are pretty much similar to everything we have been seeing till now. What's different is number one, you're having an employee base that's already very comfortable with this technology as compared to the other technologies that we've been rolling out for some time, right? That could be an S4 HANA, that could be a Azure transformation, that could be a culture transformation, that could be a acquisition. Pick all the changes that we've been dealing with, where there is a information asymmetry between what the employee knows and what the organization knows of the technology that's coming their way or the platform or the change. In this case, you have employees who are very, very comfortable with the AI and they have their own opinions on it. They have their own judgments on it. So that's at the employee level. At the team leader level, again, you have team leaders who are very well versed in what their process expectations are, what technology can do, can't do. They are now veterans of many more digital transformations. So they have a very clear set of asks on what it should do and what it should not do and how they can guide their teams. Right? And then you have leadership. And leadership, as always, has a set of expectations on what the change can bring. So for me, the biggest difference between these transformations and what's happened before is you have an informed or misinformed organization upon which you're bringing the change. And what does this mean for us? Uh, Few things. One is realign expectations, make sure that the organization knows what's coming their way. The precise research is pointing to the fact that don't make it pockets of change, make it a larger organizational wide change. Uh, One more formula of success they picked up is organizations that are doing this change in consonance or at least with awareness of what else is happening in the industry that they are in are having a better chance of success. So do that. Uh, Most important, of course, don't do this from within one closed cell that's going to say "tada" and introduce the change to the organization. Do it in as open, inclusive fashion as possible. Let people play with it. Uh, with a, and again, sorry, when I say let people play with it, that also opens up another finding, which is about make sure your culture is comfortable enough to handle everything that this change is going to bring along. Sorry, Bharti, I could kind of go on, but did that make sense? Is that reasonable?
Yes, actually, it did open a lot of other questions in my mind. Maybe I
Right.
will pick it up with you, over the next few questions. So, what I wanted to know was that so See, what are some compelling ways organization can quantify and communicate the long-term value of sustainable AI adoption? I mean, leaders are always looking for ROI at the end of the day. So where do I start? I mean, how do we start when we're talking about change management?
Um, I have an ex-finance background, so I'm going to make this light-hearted comment that leaders speak of ROI, but they don't necessarily quantify it well. They don't necessarily understand it well. It's a broad, sweeping generalization I'm going to make. And that's a flaw with organizations' performance systems and business performance systems more than anything else. Now, coming to the question that you're asking again, if I go back to the research that we have, the research is pointing out to the fact that the first few things that organizations that are successful in such transformations or beginning to show signs of success in these transformations are doing is looking for numbers, looking for evidence in time saving, efficiency, productivity, that category of stuff. We are then looking for quality improvements, and then comes in that order, if I remember right, comes customer impact. They're looking for things that improve customer impact. And fifth, they're looking for employee experience. So the reason I call that out, Bharti, is I find that mix is brilliant, right? It's almost like balanced scorecard days. Organizations and leadership is being mature about the fact that we can find ROI in very many of these contexts. The first few that I mentioned are very, very metrics driven, KPI driven. So productivity and throughput, if you like, quality and efficiency, they're all number driven, right? But then you move into customers experience, you're moving into employee experience, customer impact. Those are areas which may not necessarily have a measurable number to pick, but they are observable, right? And I think the fact that it's observable or even visible is is something worth keeping in mind. Why am I saying all this? The early days of any technology transformation, putting an ROI on it is going to be difficult. Any technology transformation, it does take time to set in. If you think about it, what we say in ProSci, we say adoption is very different from proficiency. And very often ROI sits with proficiency, getting good at something, not just adopting something, not just having it provisioned on your laptop, right? It's got to be more than that. I adopt it and then use it in such a way that I've actually changed my ways of work. I'm not just dipping in once a day because the team is saying that I should dip in, right? So I'm actually beginning to use it, and then I'm getting good at it. And at getting good at it is where the pot of gold lies, right? So I think it is early days to speak of an ROI metric, but I think it's valuable to know that those 5 areas are what organizations are looking for in ROI. Actually, it's a longer list, but these are the top 5 in my head. And I absolutely love the fact that employee experience is a part of the game. Should be, right? So, so just so you understand what I'm saying organizations are actually saying that using AI should change my employee experience of their 8 hours of work. That's damn cool, and that's nail on the head for many things that AI brings to the table.
I think
Back to
that's
you. I
very
think today's conversation, I'm going to be very gung ho, and you have to shut me off. Please go on.
That's a very interesting perspective, that adoption and proficiency. I mean, more often we end up talking about adoption and not the proficiency. And then, like you rightly said, how to, the gold lies there. So, yeah. So, I just want to tell the audience who've joined. I know, I mean, Krish and I can go on about these conversations, but it'll be great to hear questions from your end as well. So, we'll try and pick up, whatever questions that we can. One, I think you did touch upon this in the first question, but I specifically wanted to know how would the role of sponsors or managers change to deal with this, with their people in the AI-led world. You did mention about employee experience. So, what should they adopt to adapt to this kind of transformation?
So I'm going to say something generic to contextualize how I think of it, and then go back to research. Uh, I think of this. I think of AI transformation within organizations as the organization giving every employee in their office a bunch of Lego blocks, right? And then saying, make what you want with it. And so, from an employee's perspective, they have absolute license to do whatever they want to do with the Lego block. Find some cool way to do it. Share it with their colleague. Then maybe the whole team is doing that particular Lego block, Lego construct really well, and maybe that propagates through the organization, right? But the moment I put the Lego block in, I'm adding that element of creativity. I'm adding that level of individuality, right? The organizations are appreciative in this change. The fact that many of the ways in which you're going to use cases, as if you like, is going to come from individuals or functions or teams and so on and so forth. So there's a wide opportunity here on how AI is going to thrive in my organization, leave alone my industry, and even within my organization, in my function, in your function, and so on and so forth, right? So with that in mind, what do team leaders need to do? Team leaders are obviously caught up with resourcing, caught up with KPIs. They are concerned, research tells us they're concerned with how much can I rely on this AI output or my team members depending on AI input versus expertise. So team leaders need to feel comfortable, need to buy into the system a little more, need to experiment on their own, need to provide their employees a little more safety in testing it out rather than share just their concerns. By the same token, those team leaders also need to take this up to their senior leaders and share that here are my concerns and how do we alleviate them? How do we mitigate them? Which is a fair question to ask. Right? Sponsors, again, uh, I think, and this is a very India thing that's happening. Uh, I'm sure it's happening in other locations too. For many leaders, AI is still a new shiny toy, and it's still going to be led by technology coming and giving it to us. And you tell us how to do it, and we'll do it. Or we are going to figure out AI as a part of my 8 hours, as a part of my 12 hours. We are extremely busy. So if someone comes up with an idea, I'll tell you about it, but otherwise we move on. Right? The ownership of AI transformational success is still resting with central teams. And that is why many of these transformations are getting stuck with POCs and pilots and not moving forward. So, with leadership, again, the ask is what we say in ProSci, right? The ABC of sponsorship: actively and visibly participate in the change, build a coalition, make sure that you're bringing others along, and most important, be the face of the change. Communicate about the change, uh, and that's not just in your town halls, but in your one-to-ones. Basically, if sponsors and team managers are not working with the AI themselves, uh, yet again, the organization is going to have that challenge. It's worth keeping in mind, Bharti, that just like we saw with social media, we again have a situation where most of the people coming into the room, coming into the office, are already using AI outside of work. So you're in effect telling them in at work, how should you use AI? And for many of them, that's going to be weird, a little less than maybe what they got outside, or definitely a little different, right? So again, sponsors and managers are in the lovely position of trying to bring the story along, right? uh, Bring the story along in a way that the employees can understand that, okay, I have a personal benefit out of using AI, out of being employable, out of being able to lean into tomorrow's technologies, and here is the organizational benefit, right? uh, I think both of them are a key part of the storyline. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yes, yes, it absolutely did, and I think I got some audience questions also on that when we were talking about it. So, what is it personal ROI as compared to an organization ROI? So, each of us are also dealing with that. So, what do you think is the difference there?
So the personal ROI, which is happening at an individual level for most, let's take two personas, right? Let's take an employee who's just doing their work day to day. They're doing the assigned work that is coming their way. Their role does not involve them uh, to be thinking about other people's work. Their work is about their work, right? If that is my persona, then what it definitely brings to me is my efficiency, right? That fifth characteristic that I spoke about in terms of employee experience, that's sitting in that personal ROI. As an employee, I feel a little less stressed. I have a sounding board. I have a way in which I can dip into the organization's knowledge. All of a sudden, if I'm an operator of machine X in an assembly line, technically I have access to everyone else in every other plant of the same assembly line having that data. We had knowledge bases before. We have PDF documents before, but now I have a talking construct that I can engage with and get insights from. Right. That's one kind of employee role. Another kind of employee role. Now I'm responsible for other people's work. I'm thinking about other people's work. I'm analyzing other people's work. Right. Now, again, my benefits are very, very different. I have now a mentor, maybe if you like, uh, uh, a sounding board, a data analysis buddy. We have many ways to look at what the AI brings to you that can help me zero in on what's the value over here. So in both cases, if you notice, we have suddenly changed the way this person does work. They are not doing it alone in their head using a set of processes. They are now interacting with their work. They are interacting with their job description. It changes the game. Right? Uh, that's in my head one way of thinking about personal ROI. Uh, Professional ROI or organizational ROI, as you said, is definitely functional gain. Going back to my Lego construct, now I'm talking about with that Lego construct, I've created a inter-office flying Lego machine. Right? All of a sudden, my cross-silo communication has become much better. Cross-functional teams are no longer just for fighting and the tea and snacks. Therefore, actually having good conversations.
That's, I mean, it's like bringing that live mentor or companion along to work, right? So that
Yeah.
is really interesting.
I
So
sorry.
these,
One
yeah.
additional comment I'm going to make is I have serious angst against this whole AI as an intern thought process. I think it's dangerously misleading. Uh, so yeah, I think it's probably more and a little less than that. Again, that's a thread I don't want to pull on now, but I'm just asking us to think of AI in a form and shape that makes sense for you, right? Um, Back to you.
Yeah. We spoke about sponsors and managers, but we are all change managers here. So how is, the role of change manager changing with this AI coming in? So what is your take on that?
So okay, now that we are talking about a role, I can call back that earlier point I made about is the organization a safe place in which for this whole change to happen, right? Uh, in abstraction, technically most organizations are, right? But the moment you take a particular role, you start thinking about that role. The role is defined by what it does, who it does it with, what it's measured on, how it's prepared to do that, deliver the results. So all that is what a role gets as inputs and outputs. And anytime we know this, Bharti, because in Mar we obviously deal with a lot of culture, right? So we know that from a culture angle, the moment you touch anything that affects the safety or the success metrics of a role, things get messy, or at least the role holder starts getting concerned, getting anxious, maybe is the right word to use, right? So now I'm saying all of that in context of your change manager role. I think change managers, when they think of AI, when they are seeing AI, again, that's one more research we did just on how change management is using AI. There is a lot of positivity about it. So change managers are seeing the fact that AI changes the way they communicate. Remember, many of our change managers have a communication background, yet they are looking at it positively and they're saying, it changes the way I communicate. It changes the way I do my work. My as in, I have to set up this meeting, I have to have that engagement conversation, I have to sequence it in this order. Which order do I sequence it, right? That administrative thinking that they do has changed. uh, I think just from an operational efficiency, right? If I had to create a deck, if I needed to uh, share X, Y, Z to that colleague in that form and shape, how often should I meet them? How often should I deal with them? All those decision making also is something that you're using AI for. So the cerebral part of change management does change. The thinking part of it does change. You have help. But Bharti, again, you've heard me say this very often that it's dangerous or almost impossible to do change management from behind a screen. Change management is about being with the people that you work with. And that doesn't change at all. Shouldn't change, doesn't change. Uh, the How you set it up for success, that gets improved dramatically. But fundamentally for a change manager, that part of engaging with people doesn't change. Uh, when we speak about and the reason I connected this whole thing back with psychological safety, back with organization culture is because that's how we must think about how AI is going through. Think about it in terms from the roles perspective. Think about impacted groups. Think about how they experience the change and how are we making it safe for them to do it. I know some organizations that are saying, all right, so apparently our communication department, internal comms can drop in size. Now, that is, it's dangerous for organizations to uh, link these two ideas because I don't even think it's accurate that because of AI you're letting go of comps. It's a whole confluence of very many issues that you're doing. But the moment the organizations juxtapose this, then correlation implies causation, then people are going to assume X is led to Y. No, X is happening, Y is happening. They're correlated but not causative. So I think I'm going to connect this back to your earlier question. I think sponsors and managers need to be very, very conscious about are the statements they are making feeding the fears uh, or generating more hope? right? And I think that intentionality is going to be important. Sorry, again, I think that I took it to a lot of places. I hope that made sense.
It did make sense, and it's a beautiful segue to the next question, and the elephant in the room, right? So this AI thing is pitted against the human. This fear is the first thing that is coming up, and psychological safety. So, how to address that fundamental fear which is coming with this transformation, and what can organization do to create that psychological safe space for the employees?
So I'm going to lean back on the ATCA model, because when we talk about fear, it's good to know where the fear is coming from. Uh, as we know, ATCA model: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. Awareness and desire are very crudely, very simplistically talking about the motivation for you to be a part of the change. K and A are talking about how equipped you are. Knowledge and ability are talking about how equipped you are to deliver the change. R is talking about how well is the change and the organization and context structured to help you keep doing the change. Very simplistically. If I wear that lens, the fear comes from what? Is the fear coming from the R? Do you believe that by doing it, I'm going to fail, or a stakeholder is going to point a finger? They're going to say, why didn't you give me the report like last time? My manager is going to say, how could you use AI? Is that your fear? Different set of answers. If your fear is KNA, I don't think I can do it. I think it's too complicated. I think it's too messy. I think it's too. I don't know any of my colleagues who have done it, or someone who's done it has someone who I know very well has done it and said it's very complicated. Different fears, different set of solutions. If it's A and T, why should I do it? Maybe I should just wait and watch. Let's see how it's going to go. It's going to take away jobs anymore. Different set. So first thing is, it's good for us to be self-aware of where those fears are coming from. Comment one. Comment two, as one professional to another, I would say don't rely on anyone who speaks in absolutes. AI is brilliant, and AI is dangerous, and AI is going to do this. All of these declarative statements are premature. And premature is probably the nicest word I can imagine. Many other words, but I'll stick with premature. Uh, so, one, think about what you're swallowing. Think about what you're being fed. Think about what you're listening to. Think about what you're watching. And probably many of the things you're watching are just reinforcing your fear. So consider that. Second, the only simple way to deal with your fears is face your fears, and you should lean into them. You should then say, okay, so what am I scared of? And don't like swimming, jump into the pool. You have to do that at some point to know whether your fears are real or not. That's an individual comment. Organizationally, what should we do with the fear? I think talking more about it is very, very important. We have been doing this in organizations and change for a long time, right? Having leaders come together for an ask me anything, leaders come together for a thank God it's Friday kind of conversation. We do that all the time. Bring it up to the open, speak about the elephant in the room, right? I think I've heard so many leaders say again and again, this is not about jobs, guys. We just need to do AI to stay competitive. We need to do AI because there is a value in doing this. We need to do AI because it makes the organization better. So if it's being said and not being heard, we're back to psychological safety, we're back to organization culture, and leaders and managers should change the way they're saying it or change what they're saying. They should figure it out. But I don't think, let me say this differently. I feel that people are afraid of fear has become a narrative on its own. And when I look at individuals and organizations, and I look at the many, many organizations we're dealing with, I don't see it as deep as it's being portrayed. So again, I would caution people to watch out for narratives being called out. Narratives on the one extreme that say AI is God's gift to humanity. Narratives on the other end saying AI is going to take away everything of humanity. I think carry that storyline with caution. Right?
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. So the question was for me. So should we bring a culture shift or something to adapt to new ways of working before we are, AI solution comes in, or anything of those
So
lines?
I'm thinking in two ways. One, as you know, again in Mark, we are very, very strong proponents for don't touch culture in general. Think about what aspect of your current culture is getting in the way of your future goals, and then see if you want to tweak that. So that's one broad comment. Right? The second comment I'm going to make is, as you can see, no one person is using AI the same way. Every one of us has a different set of things that you use for different jobs, right? I might use Midjourney for something, I might use Anthropic for something, etc., etc. Each of us have our own selection of tools. And that's wonderful. The fact that the AI landscape has become so varied that individuals are picking their own tools that will suit their workflow. And then come industry level specialization, right? If I'm into protein discovery sitting in pharma, I use something completely different. Uh, and that's probably tailor made for my organization in some form or shape. If I'm doing just workflow management across a process industry, I do something different. If I'm a knowledge worker, I'm using an internal GPT or an external GPT. So keep in mind that even before we touch culture, there is so much happening on the solution design space on what does this AI and how does it get into work. That's one comment I would make. Second comment, back to change management. Help your employees understand how they can work with technology. I don't think we ever got that. Even in the earlier versions of technology, we have been quite comfortable abandoning stuff to technology. If I think about many of the Microsoft BI implementations, I've had leaders very often ask me, Krish, well, so I have this dashboard. What do you do with the dashboard? And the point I'm trying to make is making decisions with technology has not come naturally very often. So again, in AI, it's definitely collaborative. I have to work with the technology to extract it, help your employees, teach them. Again, back to sponsor roles, manager roles, helping the employees collaborate with it is not something that they have understood yet because it's either my job or not. Why? Because organizationally, people think in terms of accountability because they think in terms of blame. So their first reaction is, are you going to blame me or the AI? When I have to use AI and I don't know whether what the AI said was right or wrong, I don't want to be blamed, but I would love to have the credit. It's a weird situation to be in. Clarify this. Help the organization understand what is okay, what is not okay, right? Uh, I think helping them understand how to use it is critical. So that's the second part, even before we touch culture. I think the third part is uh, making sure that you tell the organization it's okay to experiment. It's okay to experiment so long as you're not taking organizational risks. Don't put this data in, don't put that data in. Somehow the employees are hearing it as, okay, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, and you still want me to give this result. Make that a more positive message. Show them better examples. I think even before we touch culture, there's a lot in play. I think the culture comes in Bharti because the presence of AI changes the nature of work. Nature of work. And again, I'm not talking about jobs. I'm talking nature of work, right? My remote working becomes far more doable. My virtual working, virtual teams become far more doable. Uh, we're already seeing how agentic work is making it more possible for the average procurement team to never deal with a human seller. The average procurement team is probably going to be an agent and it's going to contact other agents. So it's going to be agents to agents having a conversation on making an organizational purchase, right? So what does that mean? How does that play out? I think those are the things that you want to have a more cultural thought process on, uh, more than anything else. Was that too much?
That
Sorry.
was. I think I'm just going to leave with the last question. I think we are already going to be over time. So, with AI, there are just too many changes happening at all levels, like as an employee, from sponsors, from managers, and AI itself bringing changes in so many aspects of all our work. So, how do we enable organization to, smoothly transition this? I mean, you did mention about ADKAR framework, cross-site research. So how do we enable that transition to happen with so many changes coming in? Right?
So again, research is pointing it out. Anecdotally, you know this. When you talk with organizations, that's what they say. The glaring missing block in most of these changes is the change management part. Change management, unfortunately, is something all of us as leaders end up doing as a part of a 8 hour, 10-hour day. And we know that it's a completely different discipline, right? Uh, ProSci, word comes from profession and science, and the profession part is it's a function, it's a separate function. What do we mean by that? Like you said, Bharti, it becomes making my organization's change muscle stronger. It's a change capability that we are building, right? So the question now becomes not whether I can make my leaders help my team through an AI transformation. How do I make my leaders good at bringing my teams through change, no matter what the underlying change is? When my average leader is extremely busy and has thus far engaged with change by giving their best direct reportee as a representative for the change. That's what an average leader has been doing. I need to change that. I need to change the way the leader is doing that ABCs. The let me say this. Let me say it this way. The in with change capability, a percentage of the leader's capability or sorry, calendar time is going to change management. So how do I build that in? How do I help leaders as a group? If you're in a sponsorship role, if you pass this grade, I need you to have the skill set. And here is training to do it, here's mentorship to do it, here's coaching to do it. How do you do that? Similarly, managers. If you're a manager, then you need to have these skills, this bunch of skills called Clark, right? And with Clark, you have the opportunity to bring your teams through change. And yes, we acknowledge the fact that sometimes you yourself need help in a change. So how do you as a manager, as an employee, lean into a change? How do you get your teams to come into the change? And so on and so forth, right? How do I get the project teams to think in terms of, okay, this is an absolutely amazing solution. How do I get people to engage, adopt, and use it? How does project management participate and collaborate with change management? How do I get those wonderful change agents created up, right? And those strategic decisions, do I have a standing army of change agents across different projects? Or do I have a specialist change agent just for this project? I think this is the best time for organizations to start thinking in terms of, is change management a capability in my organization? And I'm betting if you're a change manager, you'd love to work in an environment like that, where leaders already understand their role in change. Research tells us about half of leaders don't know that they got a role to play during change. When I speak to leaders, they don't even know they have a direct contribution to adoption and usage. So, man, that's great opportunity here.
Thank you, Krish, for your insightful answers. I mean, it's always a pleasure to learn from your experience in this field.
Probably
And
more enthusiastic than insightful, but
Yeah, I must say so. And a big thank you to all of you who have joined us live today. Let us know if we should continue these conversations and question and answers with Krish. So let us know in the comment. If you would like to contact or chat with us, please visit our website and write an email to the email ID which is mentioned in the comment section. So AI is transforming the future, and we are in this journey together. So let us make this change a huge success and get it right the first time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.